Halloween night was always kind of fun in Watchung. Everything was down on Hillcrest Road, and of course I'm living out on Valley Road, too far out, not liking it, and there were other children out farther than I. And what we would do, my friends and I, Audrey was at Wally's. Audrey would start out, and across the street was another girl by the name of Joanna Richard. They would come down Bonnie Byrne to Valley Road. Janet King, another gal, was living on Vale Lane at that time. They would pick up Janet, then I was next, and then we'd walk down and get Hester, and all the way down to the center of town. And one thing I remember, our high school principal, Clarence Withers, lived on Hillcrest Road. And the guys being guys, one of them was my husband, Bill Titus. I know another one was Butch Scotty's brother, Louie. I'm sure there was Fred Steck and Harold Tonight. Anyway, they had a big long rope, took the rope, tied the whole rope around Mr. Withers' house, the doors all tied shut. Then they rang the doorbell, and of course Mr. Withers could not get out of the house. And I do not remember what happened when they went to school the next day, but I'm sure they all graduated, and it was kind of a fun story that we all remember.
And on Halloween, Mrs. Blackadar, John Blackadar's mother, lived on Hillcrest Road, and every Halloween she would serve ice cream to everybody that came. And in those days, people didn't have freezers to put ice cream in, so it was a big deal. So we would all wait till the last place to go to and go to Mrs. Blackadar's to get our ice cream. One time, I don't know how many girls, there was a crabby old man that lived on Mountain Boulevard near the lake, and he had these great big concrete mill, I don't know what they were, big round heavy concrete things. And he was always hollering at everybody in town about one thing or another, always complaining to my father about something somebody had done. So we decided that we were going to take those big round things and push them in the lake. So it took all of us, maybe 12 or more girls, and we rolled them down the hill from his house and got them over to the edge of the lake. And then my father came riding around later on with one of his deputies, and he saw them there, so he said, let's just move those back so that the old man, whatever his name was, doesn't see that, and I don't have to listen to him tomorrow. So he and the deputy moved them back, and the next morning my sister and I were sitting at the breakfast table, and my father was sitting there, and I said, what's the matter, Daddy? And he said, oh, I broke my ribs last night. And I said, how did you do that? And he told us that he moved those things back. My sister and I never told him that it was us that had done it until after we were married years later. There was a tradition in Watchung, and this was way before we were even thought to be alive on this earth, but all of our forefathers, the outhouses were a mainstay in town, and every Halloween somebody's outhouse would get moved from Hillcrest Road or Valley Road or Sterling Road and be either moved down in the center of town or up on a roof in the stores in the center of town. And then they would have to get put back. And so when it came our age, when we got old enough to do things like that, my husband and Betty Jean's husband and a bunch of them got a truck, and my sister had an outhouse out on Valley Road, and that was just for looks. And so they moved it up to Pittenger's house, which is on Sterling Road. And Pittenger got a big kick out of it.
When we were kids, I mean, Warren seemed like a lone place to go to us. We had horses. There were a lot of kids in town with horses. We started Tally Ho 4-H Club that my brother was the president of. And we had little horse shows up near Barbara Deem's house. and we rode all over, and that was our transportation. In the summer, we would ride out to Warren and meet some other friends and ride out through the great swamp. I technically was the youngest of the group, and I wasn't supposed to go past Watchung Circle. And one day my mom was showing houses out on the other side of Martinsville and drove right past us with a customer in the car. And there's really no way to hide behind a tree when you're on a pony. So I did get busted for that one. But we had fairly harmless adventures.
Where the council, mayor and council chamber is now, there was a stage behind where the council sits, and it was an auditorium.
Also out on Valley Road, we took the school bus, and it was very unique for me because the bus would let me off in the front of my house, which was on the south side of Valley Road, which is now Wolford Court. It was where we grew up, but it has changed, and there's a few houses on it now. But he would let me off in front of my house. I'd run in the front door, run upstairs, and change clothes, because then when we went to school, we all wore skirts, dresses, and didn't wear our play clothes until we changed in the afternoon. But I'd run upstairs, change my clothes, run back out down the stairs and outside, and he would pick me up, take me down to the center. If it was winter, I'd have ice skates. If it was sleigh riding, I'd have my sled with me.
We used to sleigh ride down Washington Drive when we were kids, for, up the street, down the street. I mean, we go all day. We never got tired.
And I have some of the similar memories about sledding down Hillcrest Road all the way before it was a circle, and walking back up, and you could only make one or two trips in the afternoon because you'd run out of time.
I also remember Don telling me about the times he and Jerry Mobus used to go sledding.
Actually, I was coming back from work. We just had an ice storm. There was no snow at all on the ground. It was just ice. And he was walking up behind me, came from Best Lake area. He was trapping. Okay. So he had a sled, and he said, "Oh, I guess I was 17 then." He said, "Hey, you want to try a hill?" So I said, "Yeah, I'll try it." So we went up to Ed Canning lived up there. Well, Donald Lang lived there then. Dawson lived there, I think. We went up that hill. It was all stones, no blacktop. We went sleigh riding down that road, and we were going so fast. His head was breaking the icicles and the branches, and all of a sudden the sled just folded up underneath us, and he rode me halfway down the hill. But that was a funny story.
And there was an etiquette, an unspoken etiquette to driving on Valley Drive. When you were trying to get up the hill in the snow, you just hit the gas and didn't stop. And it was the obligation of anyone coming down the hill to get themselves out of your way. Whether it was a kid who had to jump into a snowdrift, or a car that had to just pull off the road or into a driveway.
One of my jobs in the winter, which I got paid for, was to get down to the library. In the center of the library, the only heat it had was a big potbelly stove. And my job in the winter was to walk down from my house and start the fire an hour before they opened the library, so that it was warm enough in there. And then I used to sit around. Of course, I had to feed it until it got there, and after everybody got there, then I could leave. But I'd sit and read books and do homework or something like that. At Christmas, on the corner of the building of the municipal building, they put up a speaker and played Christmas carols. That you could hear throughout the center, and and I can very much remember one snowy night walking down there with the Christmas carols going, and I had to go start the fire, and it was undoubtedly cold, and I was thinking that this was the greatest place that I ever could live.
And we were very lucky with the lake, Best Lake, because the people that owned it, the Best family, they had One boy was just a little bit younger than I, and then they had quite another son who was younger. But they were very good with letting us sleigh ride down the hills and onto the lake, swim in the lake. We used to have mud fights down in the lake because it was shallow. We'd jump off the boathouse and scoop up the mud and throw it at each other. And we were very lucky, which I now realize I had a very excellent childhood growing up in the borough, the small borough of Watchung.